I'm Natasha. I'm founder and CEO of a startup called EON, and we are working with global brands and industry to create CircularID, or the digital foundation for circular economy. Before I kick off, since we're an intimate group, I'd love to get an understanding of who you guys are in the audience, so I can also tailor this content to be more interesting and relevant to your work. So who do we have in the room who's on the brand or design side? Great. On the technology, supply chain? Great. Great. And circular economy stakeholders? Anybody? Great. Nice to meet you guys. So before I kick off, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on where I came from. Before starting EON, I worked in smart cities. And in that work, became really interested in time, right? Where do we actually exist in time? And cities become a really interesting way to look at that, right? You can see in New York City all the layers of time, right? The old buildings, the new buildings, and all these worlds coming together at once. So when we start to think about actually where we are in time, that to me is really interesting. Like, who are we and where do we exist in this sequence of time, right? So we are, according to our own description of where we are in time, someone in the future will probably describe us differently later, but we're at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution, which is distinct and defined by disruptive technologies permeating our everyday lives. And this is different from what some of us have lived through, which is the third industrial revolution, the ability to exchange information digitally and communicate through the internet and through email. This new industrial revolution is about these technologies permeating our everyday lives, permeating the physical world around us, products being connected to the internet. And what's exciting and a little bit scary is that this fourth industrial revolution is differentiated by a few key factors. One, the speed of these technological breakthroughs. Two, the pervasiveness of this technology, and three, the impact of new systems created by this connectivity. And keep in mind that new systems point as we move through this content. So the Internet of Things is one of the most disruptive technologies that's impacting and driving this fourth industrial revolution. Because what the Internet of Things is really the connection between that digital infrastructure and our physical world. The ability to generate, share, and communicate data through physical products. And so in my work in smart and connected cities, we used a lot of IoT technologies to design intelligent systems, whether it was efficient building systems, whether it was better traffic designs, whether it was the ability to communicate parking availability or inform healthcare for the city. And all of this use of IoT technologies created more intelligent systems for the cities, which was kind of like have a living ecosystem, these urban environments. And what was most interesting to me was the triple bottom line impact of this IoT technology within the city, right? We were able to create a better quality of life for the people living in the city using IoT. We were able to create reduced costs by implementing smarter and more efficient systems. And we were also able to improve environmental performance of the city using IoT. And so part of my work then became going to new places in the world, some of the most polluted parts of the world, and with this mandate of create a healthy city, which was pretty impossible when the air quality was not processable by my own lungs. So basically part of the work was like, oh, do we introduce all these air purification systems to this city, right? And basically have people travel through tunnels and doors and blah, blah, blah. And that just did not feel like a systems-based approach toward designing healthy and sustainable cities. So as we look at kind of the problems that are affecting that, really we can say that this linear model that is driving our global health and environmental challenges is driven really by this inefficiency in the linear production model, right? We have over 150 billion articles of clothing produced every year with a population growth of an average of 82 million per year, right? So it's not just a problem of volume, it is also a problem of growth and how to design an intelligent system that supports all of those together. So as I was looking at circular economy and these intentions of brands to design circular products, it was a little bit unclear, right? Were these products that were quote-unquote circular actually behaving in a circular way within the system, or were they just ending up in the same places as every other product, right? There was no way to measure or see where products were going in circular economy. And so were we actually designing circular products, or were we just introducing more products into this linear system? And so that led me to look into how to apply connectivity or Internet of Things technologies to circularity. How can we start to design a more intelligent system by using connectivity so that we can actually start to identify and manage all of these products within the circular economy, right? If we're making billions of products and if we have billions of people to support, we need a way to manage these products and design an intelligent system that supports management of these products across the life cycle. And that systems-based approach of IoT actually very closely mirrors the principles of circular economy. The principles of circular economy are about how to keep materials and resources in flow, right? If you look at nature, when a tree loses its leaves, those leaves come back into, the tree doesn't view those leaves as waste or trash or, send someone to pick them up and haul them off. They actually use those leaves as nutrients to go back into the system. So this systems-based approach and this intelligent systems design of nature and IoT actually very closely mirror each other. But circular economy is actually more than that. It is not just a principle of systems design. It is circular economy. It is actually an economic model. And so one of the things that I often hear people talking about is, circular economy, it's about recycling. Well, it's actually not. It may be one portion of it, but it's about creating a new economic model that allows companies to have economic growth while also making product. Today, if a company wants to grow, they have to make more. That is the only way that they can grow, right? But how can we introduce new economic models that allow companies to grow and generate more revenue while not depleting our natural resources? And that is the principle of circular economy. And that is where IoT and circular economy come together to design natural systems that have this triple bottom line value. Because the Internet of Things and digital identity actually introduce the ability to introduce new economic models and revenue from existing products, right? A connected product is the key to facilitating what we call product as a service and basically these new systems of products rather than ownership and disposal of products. So all those factors coming together made me quit my job and start EON. And basically, our premise was that if every product had a digital identity, we could power the intelligence essential for circular economy. So today, EON is the leading digital identity company across fashion, apparel, and retail, and we work with global brands to create digital profiles for physical products with the mission of using that information to power the circular economy of that product. Our partners include some of the largest global brands and retailers, as well as technology partners, including Microsoft and GS1, which if you know GS1, they're the organization behind the barcode, including circular economy stakeholders, to basically start to create this connected system. And it's a really exciting time for digital identity. Right? We are on the threshold of a digital identity revolution where every person and product will have a digital profile and the ability to share information about those assets. And what exactly is a digital identity? A digital identity is a digital twin of a physical product. It's basically, you could think of it like a Facebook page for a product, right? It is an online location that in the cloud that stores data about that product. And it makes it possible to communicate about this product and share information about this product. So when we look at why digital identity changes the product lifecycle, from the moment a product's produced, it's possible to ID it, right? You can think of it like having a product birth certificate, right? That product now has a factory associated with it, a manufacturer, a brand. There you start to build in accountability about where that asset came from. Now, from a commercial perspective, you're also using that digital identity to support management and visibility in the supply chain. You know where that product was made, how it comes from. You can support supply and demand matching. You can have better inventory management, better production, more efficient systems in the supply chain as we know it today. Then when that product gets to retail, as brands and retailers are looking to power their omni-channel strategy, how do they basically support all of that? That ability to buy a product online and in store and skip checkout. That's where your digital identity comes into place. Now today, we use rudimentary identification from point of production to point of sale, but we also remove that identification at point of sale, which means that we basically say goodbye to that product. We don't ID it because we say today that we don't really care what happens to it. As we move into circular economy and we want to start bringing those products back into the system, we work with brands to ID those products so that product can be ID'd for resale, that product can be ID'd for recycling, and we can start to have measurement and accountability in circular economy. So I want to go into a little bit of where we are today with using identification and what the next step looks like. So today we use rudimentary identification in the supply chain, right? We use an RFID tag. Does everybody know what RFID is? Okay. RFID is basically like a next generation barcode. It's a number system that gets associated with a product, and you can read it. You can read hundreds of RFID tags at once with an RFID reader. And, you know, companies like H&M and Inditex, they tag basically every product with an RFID tag today, but it's on the hang tag, and it gets removed at point of sale, right? And basically, RFID today is just a number. It's not, doesn't have data associated with it. When we create a digital identity, we're actually enriching that number with data. So you could think of it that now that RFID number, right, points to a web location that has all of the information about the product. So what was just a number once before that didn't really mean anything now has a complete data profile associated with the product. So it's not as though we're actually reinventing the supply chain. We're actually leveraging all of the current digital infrastructure and enhancing it with a digital profile and data. Also, if you have questions, you can chime in, but I'll also take questions at the end. And basically, why is this important for circular economy? Well, today, in order to resell a product, for example, a reseller has to look at that product, ID that product, manually type in all the information, try and authenticate it. The process to re-commerce a product can take upwards of 2 hours, right? That is not operationalizing the circular economy. The process to share and rent products is inefficient, and there's a lot of friction in these models today. With a digital identity, a reseller can instantly scan that product, ID it, and upload it. And what creates this new model really from the retailer perspective is now actually there's a bridge in communication between the brand and the reseller, right? So there can actually be new models of revenue share, of brands that participate in the economics of the second market, brands that know where their products are going, brands that support resale. So one company that does this well is the North Face, right? They have partnered with a group called the Renewal Workshop to re-commerce their products. And they'll tell you that basically the cheapest product to sell is the one that you've already made, right? But today there are not processes around resale that tie the brand to that model. And digital identity makes that possible. As we look at rental or peer-to-peer, all those models require complex reverse logistics, meaning that product's coming in and going back out, and coming back in and going back out. And in those models, every product is a snowflake, right? So today, brands maybe make 1,000 white shirts, let's say, and every single product is the same. But when you're renting, every product actually needs a unique number because you need to track them individually. Someone may have spilt wine on that one's out on Tuesday, right? So the reverse logistics of rental also require you to ID the product, right? Then when you get into recycling, in order to recycle a product, you actually need to know what it's made of. You need to know the dye process. You need to know what the thread content is. You need to know what the zippers are, what the buttons are, what those buckles are. All of the components of a product to be recycled need to have an identity or information associated with it so that they can actually be sorted, separated, and put back into the system. So this product ID, from the moment the product's produced, supports transparency in the supply chain, and then after that product is produced, connects the entire life cycle. So what's interesting from a kind of macro perspective is that now we can start to have measurement in circular economy, which means that we can build in incentives for brands that are achieving circular economy, as well as accountability around commitments. I'd say that today a lot of brands are coming forward with, oh, we're going to be 100% circular by X date or X% circular by Y date. And it is impossible today to measure those commitments and see where that's going. This would make that possible. And basically at a policy level, the European Union and some other groups are looking at mandated digital identity in the future on the premise that you have a responsibility to ID the products that you're bringing into the world and making sure that those products can get back into the system. So the other reason that as brands are looking to new business models that this can become really powerful is the physical product, like going online today is the gateway for commerce, the physical product can also become a gateway for commerce. Now as my product has an ID, I want to share it, I want to upload it, I want to purchase something that is similar to this product. How can we actually connect with the consumer through the product that is already in their hands? And so on the back end of what a digital identity is, just to make sure that that kind of underlying tech infrastructure is clear, you have basically three core things that make a digital identity. You have one, what you actually attach to the product to ID it, right? That could be an NFC tag, that could be an RFID tag, that could be a QR code. Identifiers change, right? And different identifiers have different positives and negatives, right? RFID tag, you can read many all at once, but it doesn't speak to mobile. QR code and NFC speak to mobile, but you have to read them one at a time. So basically, there is different identifiers that can be used to connect a product's digital identity. And sometimes two are used together. Probably an RFID and QR code is going to be what you're seeing the most often. Then basically, you have the birth certificate, right, which is essentially the online location that holds all the information about that product that's true. And then the other function is the passport function, right? The ability to, now that you have this online location storing data about a product, how do you actually record interactions against that product? And that is possible once you have that web location. So you can start to see, oh, that product arrived for resale. Oh, that product arrived to be recycled. And you basically have this ability to kind of like check in products and see where they are. So in terms of how we look at data in the supply chain today brands have siloed data across their supply chain, right? It sits within key applications. If you've ever used an ERP system, if you've ever used a PLM, all of these different systems that brands and retailers use today have a portion of the product data, right? And then when that product is sold, that data is just gone and not associated to the product at all. Basically, what we do from a back-end perspective is we take that siloed data, we put it in the cloud, and then we marry it back to the product, right? So basically, a lot of brands have the information about this product that you would need to support its circular life cycle. It's just sitting in an application silo. It's not actually married to the physical asset. So what we do for brands is we provide that ability to marry that information to the product and then track and trace that information across the product lifecycle so they have visibility of the movement of products. And obviously, I like World Economic Forum because I quote them a lot. But when we look at how this is moving forward, right, we recognize that today this data is in silos. And in the future, what we need is to create this digital ecosystem is the ability to seamlessly share data between these stakeholders in the supply chain. So you could kind of think of this as like a nervous system, right? The ability for your body to communicate. If you put your hand on a hot stove, your hand takes it away without you doing anything, without you even thinking, right? That is how, when you have seamless data sharing, operations can function. And so this concept of a digital nervous system was introduced by Bill Gates, and in the book, The Speed of Knowledge, which is a great one. And basically, when you look at this idea, this digital nervous system, this is basically how people look at like creating software for companies, right? You have, by using software to connect silos of an enterprise, you actually start to weave in intelligence and inefficiencies and create a smarter business. So what we're doing is basically not just the company, but beyond the company, right? How does that digital nervous system extend from one company to their circular economy partners or to the world, right? And how do we extend intelligence beyond one corporation to enable communication between stakeholders? So from a platform perspective, that's what we do. We help brands facilitate and communicate data between different parties. And then when we started to do this, we got to this one major question, was how do we actually design this product ID that communicates to everyone in the system, right? So you have, millions of brands and millions of recyclers, and how do those product IDs, if I'm ICO and I'm, for example, ICO's H&M's recycling partner, and they're processing products from H&M, from VF Group, from PVH, how are they going to read these IDs from all these different parties? And that gets back to that thesis that World Economic Forum introduced of this digital ecosystem requires seamless data sharing between parties. And so as we were wrestling with that, we realized that we needed to bring together brands, retailers, circular economy stakeholders, and technology players to define basically that standard for product data to enable that communication between stakeholders across the value chain. So that is what we've established called the Connect Fashion Global Initiative. We are working with these global brands and circular economy stakeholders and technology partners to define how we identify products in circular economy. And the mission of this initiative is to create the digital foundation for circular economy, what has also been called the digital backbone. So what do we actually do to create that? So what we're doing is we're codifying a standard protocol for how to identify products in circular economy. And that is called CircularID, right? And basically, in order to do that, we had to work with circular economy partners, basically for the past 2 years, to understand, hey, recycler, hey, reseller, what information do you need on a product to inform your job function? And go back to the brand and say, hey, brand, where do you have that information today? Right? Where does that sit within your application? And start to codify this global standard for how to ID products consistently in circular economy to enable the communication between these players in the market. So where is this today, right? It's 2019, coming back to the theme of time, and we have codified the CircularID Standard. This will launch in January 2020. In 2020, we will be working with the brand partners to implement lighthouse pilots that implement CircularID and bridge this communication gap. In 2021, we'll be scaling CircularID to industry and opening up the tools for the marketplace to leverage along with implementation guidelines, and also working to start to create systems and standards for how to measure in circular economy. And basically what excites me is that I see big data and IoT as really incredible tools to create massive increases in quality of communication and collaboration. I think big data has gotten a really negative rap because of the way that a lot of information is used today, but I think it's a tool that we need to claim back and really use to the benefit of our society and our environment. One of my favorite books, Reinventing Capitalism in the Age of Big Data, talks about how increases in our ability to communicate basically are directly correlated and support our ability to coordinate globally, right? So it is our ability to communicate with one another. Once upon a time, it was writing, then it was the encyclopedia, then it was the telephone, the internet, and now it's actually being able to communicate through physical products with IoT. And so what that means is we are about to have the massive new ability to coordinate physical products, right? For the first time, we will actually be able to coordinate and manage and communicate with products, not just use technology infrastructure on a place online or on our computer. And so I think this presents a lot of amazing new opportunity. And if we can use this coordination and if we can use this communication effectively, we could actually facilitate circular economy, which I really do believe is crucial for our success as a species. So thank you very much. And I open it up to questions, comments, feedback. Thanks. It couldn't have been that clear. Anybody? Okay. Yeah. So when we start to make this ID, it is 3 different sources of data, like a PLM, an ERP, and maybe an Excel file that brands currently keep that product data in today. So the biggest challenge for us is actually integrating our platform with all of those 3 sources and aligning the data structures to create that ID. Great question. Yeah. So we've been working with an RFID thread. Basically, it is a fully washable, survives over 250 washes, which is more than most garments today. With further investment, it will be able to survive more. But it's both washable RFID as well as QR code printed onto the actual inside fabric. So we've been working with brands to print that QR code, not on the hang tag, but actually in and on the item itself, so that that product can be ID'd at resale. Yeah. So we introduce it in an additive way right now, like in the hem of a product or in the seam. It's not actually used to physically construct the product, but it's in the product. And the quality of identifiers is like the hotel industry has been using embedded identifiers on linens for so long, right? Because they're managing all those wash cycles. Healthcare has been using embedded RFID to manage those and washing those uniforms because they need to track them for sanitation purposes. So it does exist. The quality of the hardware is only going to improve more in the fashion industry as there's systems that support that investment. But it's pretty good right now. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everyone so much for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.